Good morning and welcome to Julia Palzer, legislative candidate from District 9. Thank you, Julia, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meetings. My name is Gina Ragland, and joining me today is Susan DeCamp, volunteer state president, and advocacy lead volunteers Bob Lassen, Mike Barwig, and Ira Nathan. Julia, we appreciate your time, taking the time to meet with us and discuss issues of importance to the 50-plus voter and their families across Nebraska. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with AARP members across your district prior to the election. So Julia, if you want to start us off by giving us a little background about yourself and your campaign, and usually we try to have that 5 minutes or less, that would be great. And then once we've completed your opening, we'll move into the questions. So I will pass it back to you, Julia. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. And thank you to each of you that are on this call and that will watch this call. I am running for District 9 for the Nebraska Legislature, which is in Midtown, Omaha. And I have lived in this district my whole life, and I'm 100% educated in this district. So it's very personal for me. My 94-year-old aunt lives behind me. My mother lives in this district. My closest family and friends, this is the district. And I'm an estate planning attorney in Omaha, and I practice for a very large firm. It's called Kellogg and Palzer, and it is my husband, Jeff, and myself. And I'm excited to meet with you today because the majority of my practice, probably 95%, is estate planning. And retired people, senior citizens, this is my #1 client. So I'm so excited to be here today. But basically, I'm running because I already represent people for a living. And I've been really watching our legislature very close for the last, I'm going to say 4 years. And I really believe that I can be a strong state senator for Midtown. I am biased, but I believe District 9, if it's not the most important district, is one of the keys. It has the largest employer in the state of Nebraska. It has the largest provider of healthcare in the state of Nebraska. It has the largest nursing home in the state of Nebraska. Our Douglas County Health Center is the largest provider of nursing services in the state of Nebraska. Our VA Medical Center is in Midtown, District 9. Every single university in the city of Omaha is in District 9. The major businesses, I think, that most people come to visit or utilize or just enjoy themselves, whether it's Blackstone, Exarban, this is all happening here in Midtown. So Nebraska, my neighbors, we really need a strong senator to represent Midtown, and I really believe I can do that. I want to do that. I think I have 1 minute left. I love it when you give me time limits. Being an attorney, I try really hard to utilize them and stick with them. But I'm running on what I believe affects every person in Midtown, whether you rent a home or own a home. Basically, I'm running on local issues. Safety. We need strong neighborhoods. I've lived in Midtown my whole life. There's one thing we can all agree on. You want to feel safe in your home. I'm running on business, taxes, economy. We are just taxed so much here in Nebraska. And I really believe everyone wants a business-friendly legislature. So these are the issues that I'm focusing on, and I would love to represent Midtown and be a strong senator and be a strong senator for the state of Nebraska.
Thank you, Julia. Appreciate that. And thank you for your background. And it's exciting to hear that, you do have a relationship with older Nebraskans and working with them on a daily basis. So thank you for sharing that. We are now going to move into the question portion, and we have provided you with a set of 3 questions pertaining to the 50+ in Nebraska. These are issues that we hear from our members on a daily basis that are important to them, and that's why we're bringing them forward. We are looking to allot 5 minutes for each question. So question number 1, it deals with health, caregiving, and home and community-based care, and Mike Barwig is going to take that. So go ahead, Mike.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
84% of Nebraskans over 45 say staying in their home as they get older is extremely important to them. Home and community-based services and area agencies on aging become important assets to caregivers as they care for loved ones. Home care not only meets the needs of their loved ones, but it also provides relief to an already strained long-term care industry. What would you do to protect and or expand the home and community-based programs, particularly recruitment and retention of a sufficient workforce and adequate funding for the programs and services that older Nebraskans and their families rely on? And two, what will you do to support the 179,000 unpaid family caregivers in Nebraska?
Well, Mike, thank you very much for this question. I understand working with my clients, and I even build it into their legal documents. People want to stay in their homes. They're more comfortable in their homes. They feel safer in their homes. And so, there's a couple of exceptions where people are like, I don't care. I'd rather go live in this community or that community. But most people, like you said, 84% want to live in their home. So I think it's very important that we keep this in mind, and kind of building on what I said earlier, this is a critical district because I don't want to say all, a lot of the healthcare providers are in this district. And we already have a shortage of 6,000 nurses in Nebraska. And what I'm learning as I talk to people, let's see, Friday I spoke with Leading Age Nebraska, and their whole focus is on long-term care, is that in addition to this shortage, we're trying to combat the problem by recruiting more nurses. And we have this workforce grant that helps pay for education for the nurses. But in actuality, only 6% of the nurses that come out of that will even go into long-term care. So the truth is, it's kind of reaching a crisis point. So we need to understand that people want to stay in their homes. It's important to me that we have safe communities so people do feel safe in their homes. But I do believe people will thrive when they're in the comfort of their own home, and it is going to be less people that are having to utilize these other facilities. So specifically what I would do is, number one, I would communicate and I would try to learn as much as I possibly can. There's quite a learning curve in the legislature. But that being said, I'm intelligent. I'm already a strong representative. I need to ask and listen to learn more about the issues. And then I need to ask hard questions. And I really, after watching the legislature for 4 years, I think it's critical we have a senator who's not afraid to ask hard questions and try to balance the competing interests. So I would support legislation, and I would try to build bridges with people who have ideas on what we can do to help the caregivers that are helping their loved ones in their home, to try to ease any burdens that they might have, and just really listen and see how we can work together. Basically, I just want to be a strong representative because there's a lot of I don't want to say competing, but different interests that need to be addressed. So I would have to listen, I'd have to learn and be bold and just see what I can do to really stand up for people and the concerns that I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Our second question is now for Susan DeCamp, and we're going to kind of switch now over to consumer fraud, exploitation, and protection. So go ahead, Susan.
Good morning, Julia.
Hi.
Nice to have you with us today. So scammers are increasingly targeting older adults with scams like wire transfers, gift card scams. I'm sure you've heard of the grandparent scam. And now popping up are schemes involving real property as well. Nationwide, the average victim of elder fraud lost nearly $34,000 due to these crimes in 2023. And in Nebraska, the FTC showed that there were 4,643 fraud reports made. Nearly 9 in 10 consumers agree that lawmakers need to do more to protect consumers from frauds and scams. So with that in mind, our question for you is, and it's a long one, so bear with me. Consumers lose billions of dollars each year to online financial property and other types of fraud. What will you do to ensure that Nebraskans are protected against fraud and deceptive business practices and provide opportunities for redress for victims of fraud? Would you support enacting laws to require merchants that sell gift cards to post notices? Would you support enactment of a consumer fraud restitution fund? And would you support implementation of preventative or corrective measures to assist in combating owner and seller housing impersonation fraud?
Yes, yes, and yes. How's that for a simple answer?
That's great.
I hope that's the right answer because it seems like the no-brainer answers. Well, I'm thinking of this one client I have. These are just wonderful people, intelligent people. They have worked hard their entire life to not only make money, but be very smart with their decisions on how they spend money. And the short of it is, they had a financial advisor. Their financial advisor scammed them out of $215,000. And we did everything we could to help them. But the truth is, they are never going to get that money back. And that financial advisor, I believe, is in jail or is approaching jail. But this is really critical, and it's not going away. It's not getting better. I do love, I'm thinking of Douglas County Sheriff Hansen. Sheriff Hansen has been having events where he invites and targets senior citizens to learn what are the current scams. You know, what's going on? What are the police seeing? What is he trying to combat? I think that is so helpful. I also didn't know if perhaps we could have more information, whether it's on what they call pre-roll when people are on their phone, or maybe we could have on television, that we could somehow just, you know, say, be aware that if you hear about this or that, that this is a scam. That's really what's coming to my mind. We really need to protect our senior citizens. They're just the best of us. They've been doing all the work. And it just seems like there's these individuals, these nefarious individuals, you know, that all they do is put these plots and plans together. So I do support those things. I really, really do. I do support the types of things that Sheriff Hansen is doing. I mean, how easy is that to come to, like, a lunch and learn, if you will? I don't think we can do enough of that. And honestly, you know, just thinking out loud, I'm Italian, unfortunately, I do that a lot. You know, as a state senator, I could try to always just keep it on the forefront of my radar to be communicating with my district, maybe something like this periodically or quarterly. Here's what I'm hearing is happening. Go ahead and tell your loved ones. And back to those caregivers on our previous question, somehow if we could equip them to know how to help look out for their person that they're helping, to build their knowledge, that would even be better. But we need to do more, and we just need to talk about it more too.
Great. Thank you for that wonderful answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you, Susan, for the question. Julia, our last question now, we're going to switch more over into housing, affordable housing and livable communities, and it talks about helping people stay in their homes and communities. So Bob Lassen's going to take that. Go ahead, Bob. And you're on mute, Bob.
Julia, thank you for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. AARP's goal is to allow people to age in place and stay in the lowest level of care and cost as long as possible. To that end, I have a two-phased question today. One of them has obstacles in zoning, and the other one is property tax. Zoning obstacles allow just single-family residential homes. In these communities, zoning does not include other housing types, such as accessory dwelling units, ADUs, manufactured homes, intergenerational duplexes, or apartment buildings, and these may all be better options for seniors. The second phase is going to be about property tax, and property tax is the most burdensome tax for many homeowners, and it's even worse for low-income and older residents. And then to kind of dovetail on that, I'll talk a little bit about homestead exemption also. So my question is two-phased. Nebraskans over 65 are the fastest growing segment of our population. And research has shown that most want to remain in their homes and communities as they age. As housing costs continue to increase, older adults are unable to find housing to meet their needs when seeking to downsize, and thus are being pushed out into communities where they have been generationally. What will you do to support, incentivize, and ensure the creation of affordable and diverse housing options, such as the accessory dwelling units, intergenerational housing, manufactured housing units, or townhomes? And the second part, dealing with homestead exemption, will you fight to ensure that the homestead exemption program is maintained and protected to ensure that older Nebraskans that qualify continue to have access to the tax relief program that allows them to age in place?
Well, thank you for asking that very long question. And if you're wondering what I'm referring to, I just printed out what you had said you sent me. Well, first of all, I really think it's important that people feel safe in their neighborhoods, and we need strong neighborhoods. I just think this is one issue we can all agree on, that we need safe neighborhoods so people want to stay in their homes, and that our home, continues to maintain its value, if you will. And we have some senators right now in our legislature that I do not believe safety is one of their priorities. In fact, I think if you go back to the defund the police movement, you would see that they supported the defund the police movement. So I think it's important that, number one, we have senators that want to, back the blue, build our community neighborhoods, and make sure that the neighbors are able to lead their neighborhoods. That's like the foundation. Being in District 9, it's a lot of old homes. So my husband, who I practice law with, our home is 110 years old. We live in the Field Club neighborhood, and they're just charming homes. But what we want to do is, so if you want a home right now, here's the deal. There's not a lot of homes, and they are way too expensive. It's almost incredible how much homes are. And really, we need to build more housing too. And I think we need to build housing keeping in mind that people age and people are living like longer than ever, which is a good thing. So homes need to be configured in a way such that people, don't have to go up 3 flights of stairs. One of our homes we lived in, there was one bathroom and it was upstairs, which, when you're 25 years old, that's not a problem. So I think we need to make sure we have safe neighborhoods, and we need to figure out how can we get people to, consider a different option if they're taking up a big home with several rooms, or maybe they can have people share some housing with them, or possibly bring in some of those home caregivers. But we also need to look at more housing, and how can we get builders incentivized to build homes that really aren't too expensive, that aren't a $300,000 home or townhome. We need reasonable housing. And going back to Midtown, I really feel that Midtown represents the middle. And I've often heard it said that the best comes out of the middle. And so having lived in Midtown my whole life, we're middle of the roaders. Yes, some very wealthy people live in District 9. In fact, Warren Buffett lives in District 9. But most of us are just working people, and we need somewhere that's reasonably, we need somewhere that has a reasonable cost to live. So the truth is, this is an area that I want to focus on. I believe we have to build some kind of relationships. Maybe relationships, number one, stronger with our state senators. It's been very chaotic watching the legislature. If our senators can get along better and listen to each other and not just be talking heads, talking, but be doers, then we can reach out to the businesses, the builders, our local governments, and see how can we make it an advantage for people to want to build and build things that regular people like you and I can afford. So that's what's on my heart to share with you. Number one, the cost of living is just through the roof. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you want to buy a house and that is through the roof. So we need to look at the cost of living and getting builders to want to build things that regular people can afford. Now, your second question, I'm looking at it. Forgive me, it was a long one. You know it was, Bob. That was a long question. Okay, the homestead exemption. Well, this is very important. A lot of people rely on the homestead exemption. And unfortunately, a lot of people who qualify for the homestead exemption, a lot of people have not been claiming it, if you will. I need to double check. The truth is I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that a lot of things now, having watched the special session regarding our taxes, are going to be like front loaded. So supposedly some things you're not going to have to ask for. I hope the homestead exemption is one of them. But basically the homestead exemption for the most part helps people of a certain age and a certain income get some tax relief. And a lot of people rely on that homestead exemption. My aunt, I'm sure, relies on that homestead exemption. My grandmother, before she passed, God rest her soul, she needed that homestead exemption. So we need to protect it, okay? And I'm going to be honest with you. I've heard of giving this homestead exemption to everyone. The problem is if you give it to everyone, I think you're making it vulnerable as being something that maybe in the future someone's going to get rid of. The main purpose of it is to help older people that are on a fixed income of a certain amount get some tax relief. I believe it also applies to some veterans, possibly disabled people, but we need to protect that homestead exemption because we're already taxed through the eyeballs in our state. One thing I do think of with AARP, you know, retired people, senior citizens, just from what I do for a living, which is estate planning, in Nebraska, we still have an inheritance tax. And I really have heard to some counties it's important because it's like one of their number one ways they fund things. And I understand that. But inheritance tax is money that has already been taxed.
Mhm.
It's a double tax. The reason I think it's important to AARP is because when you are a retired person, you're thinking of, I need to use my money to live. That's why I worked so hard. But I also worked hard to put, you know, to have something to give to my family or my loved ones when I pass. So taxes are super important. Regarding the homestead exemption, yes, I would be a strong advocate to protect the homestead exemption.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for being willing to protect, because you're right, it is a very sacred tax exemption that not everyone has the ability to have. So thank you for being willing to protect that. We are coming now to the end of our time this morning already, but we do want to give you a chance before we close things out to take a few last minutes to talk with us about any of your priorities that you have for serving in the legislature, or if there's any more specific issues that you plan to work on to address during your time as a state senator. So I'll give you a few minutes back to finish that up. Go ahead, Julia.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here today. So I really feel in my heart that the legislature that's called the People's House needs to be given back to the people. I have been watching the legislature for about 4 years now. I have not liked what I have seen. We've had a lot of people just rambling, talking, not doing, being present, but not voting. And as an attorney, I already represent people, and I just can't imagine not strongly advocating for my clients. I don't just represent the voters if I'm elected, I represent all residents, regardless of whether they vote or not. We need people of strength. We need people who believe in basic values, and I'm running on local issues that in my heart affect every person, because there's so much going on right now. To me, it's like, what can we vote for that affects everyone? And to me, that is safety. And basically, we need a business-friendly Nebraska legislature. And I don't care what issue you look at, in my opinion, it relates to a business-friendly legislature, from safety to economy to taxes. So I'm going old school. I'm going back to the basics. I really feel in my heart that I know what people in Midtown care about. I've lived in Midtown my whole life. The truth is, the Republicans are more liberal and the Democrats are more conservative. Yes, there's people on the ends, but we are the middle. It's in our name, Midtown. I will be a doer on day one. I am not running for reelection on day one. I actually want to work hard. I believe we need more workhorses in the legislature. We have a lot of people that just talk, and if you listen, they just talk and they talk and they talk. But when it comes time to draw a line in the sand, vote. I am committed to voting. I really believe it is your duty, whether you upset some people or a lot of people, or maybe you make everyone happy. That's impossible. Your duty is to show up, to ask questions, and to vote. So I just want to be a workhorse. I love working with people. I love what I do. I do estate planning. I make people leave. They leave my office feeling very happy, in my opinion. They're doing everything within their power to protect themselves and provide for their future. So I just hear myself talking, and so that means I'm talking too much. I just want to work so hard for you. And I do plan anything controversial that I vote on to just, I've seen a couple of representatives in the Congress. Basically, they'll take videos and say, today was a controversial vote. I voted this or I voted no because. So then people have my record and they can say, why did she do what she did? And that's basically it. I plan to live in Midtown my whole life. I am not moving. I am biased. It's a beautiful place. I'd recommend it to anyone, but we got to keep neighborhoods safe and we have to lower the cost of living. It's like you're working harder with less. And people feel like they're being taxed out of their homes. And that's not just a talking point. Like my clients, I'm being taxed out of my home. What do I do? Should I live with my daughter? So I just feel like I hear you and I'd really like to help you. And I just want to represent my community, truly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. We appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. We wish you the best with your campaign, and thank you again, most importantly, for meeting with AARP today. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.